Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, USDA-funded grants aim to help cattlemen across the country increase feed efficiency in their herds. Plus, learn about new research being done to combat bovine respiratory disease.
And now, a special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. In this week's episode, we're taking a look at how two USDA-funded research grants are working to improve the beef industry. One's aimed at improving producers' bottom lines through increased feed efficiency. The other is finding new ways to fight one of the costliest diseases on farms and ranches across the country. Let's take a look. Cattle producers are continuously looking for ways to improve their bottom line. And given today's commodity prices, feed efficiency plays a big role in the profitability of individual animals. But tracking that is no easy task. Fortunately, a USDA-funded program called the National Program for the Genetic Improvement of Feed Efficiency in Beef Cattle is in the process of collecting valuable data which can help producers across the country increase feed efficiency in their own herds. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck has more.
When you think about feed with respect to cattle production, it's the primary capital input regardless of what sector of the industry you're looking at, whether it's cow-calf or in the feedlot. And so it's an important component that we need to get right.
During a time when feed costs are at record high prices, producers are paying close attention to feed efficiency and how it affects their bottom line.
Feed costs is a huge obstacle when it comes to the cow-calf sector or the feeding sector, all the way through the chain. And so anything that we can do to basically produce more pounds of beef with less feed is going to make us all more profitable and also make it more available to consumers, that hopefully we can continue to produce that high quality protein at a lower cost.
I think that everybody looks at the performance and the pound of gain that you got out of those cattle, but you also have to look at what it costs you to put it there.
Figuring out the science behind producing more beef with less feed is extremely challenging, especially because tracking how much an individual animal eats is nearly impossible for many cattlemen.
A calf, a beef animal, half of his weight was got on grass much of the time with his mother. So that's nearly impossible to get intake data. Then we intake data because of our operations that are in large feedlots, and to get individual feed intake not only was very difficult, but it was very expensive.
A federally funded grant through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture is addressing this difficult problem and finding ways to improve feed efficiency in cattle by tracking feed intake in a controlled setting.
We've invested a lot of money in infrastructure to be able to record individual feeding events at the animal's own natural behavior, anytime, day or night. We can record it. We can record the animals that come in 10, 12 times a day and eat very heavily, to the animals that come in all day long and nibble, and try to decide if there's a feed efficiency component to that, and just really look into that kind of thing and try to help tie that back to the industry and how that we can become more efficient across the board.
We will produce about 8,000 individuals that we have individual animal feed intake data on, and we'll use those animals to come up with molecular estimates of breeding value that will be disseminated to people in the industry that they can use to essentially accomplish what they want, and that is to select for animals that are more efficient at converting feed into growth.
Understanding what makes cattle efficient at converting feed into growth is important across all sectors of the beef industry, but it's especially important for feedlot owners.
In the feedlot, feed efficiency is critical. You know, if you look at what really makes a particular pen of cattle profitable in the feedlot, it's basically based on the value of the cattle when they're sold, which relates to the carcass weight, their carcass quality, and their yield grade or retail product, and the cost of production. And feed efficiency, aside from the cost of the feed itself, is really the factor that drives that cost of production. So those two factors are used together for cattle feeders to determine what they'll pay for a pen of cattle, and then ultimately whether that pen is profitable or not.
Feed efficiency in a feedlot can vary based on management decisions. Everything from the type of ration used to the overall herd health determines if a particular group of cattle are feed efficient.
They've made some strides in different ways in improving feed efficiency, mostly through changes in energy level of the diet, new technologies that have come along like implants and certain feed additives that improve feed efficiency, grain processing, feed bunk management, cattle health. All of those things work together to determine what the feed efficiency of a particular pen of cattle are.
But when we talk about feed efficiency, we are in fact also talking about gain. When we're thinking about feed conversion and nutrition and with respect to feed efficiency, we have to take into that whole picture of both the feed resources as well as the animal's ability to convert that feed.
Cattle that do not gain won't provide the top quality end product that today's consumers have come to expect. That's why it's important to study feed efficiency on the molecular level. Genomic research is evolving into a precise tool for the entire cattle industry to rely on by providing new selection options.
We need to understand the basic biology that's driving those changes in efficiency. What we're doing here is we're doing a lot of work on looking at individual feed intake and growth of animals, and then looking at genomic scans for looking for genes that are associated with regulation of feed intake and regulation of growth, and trying to come up with those component traits, and then looking at putting those into selection indexes as opposed to just looking at these ratios or an index of feed efficiency.
We're trying to actually identify ways that we can measure the phenotype so that we can then move from the phenotype to the genotype of those animals and come up with expected progeny differences for feed efficiency that the producers can use to actually select for animals that are going to convert to feed to gain more efficiently than others.
While these selection tools can benefit all the segments of the beef industry, being able to have this technology at the feedlot level has the potential to change the way producers buy and sell calves.
The results of the work that the nutritionists on this project are doing will help us determine how we might change potential management once the genomic tools are determined to separate more efficient from less efficient cattle in the feedlot.
We've got a huge opportunity to use some of these genomic tools just in understanding how to feed cattle when we bring them into the feedlot, understanding what their genetic potential is, putting them into the right marketing systems as they come in as calves so that we don't waste a lot of money in feeding calves.
Arming producers with the tools to select for feed-efficient cattle not only makes their job a little easier, but ultimately means more money in their pockets.
If we can put them in, distribute them into different marketing streams and management strategies using these genomic tools, this is where it's going to have the advantage. We can get past buying calves on coat color and some of these other traits and start looking at what their actual genetic potential is when we get them in the yard as opposed to taking a guess at it.
Although it's just in the beginning stages, many producers believe the cattle industry is ready for this kind of selection technology.
If you think for a minute that cattlemen are less apt to adopt new technology as compared to people that raise crops, you're wrong. I have complete confidence in the free market system, and I know from my 52 years of selling bulls that new technology and new improvements that will increase profit, you don't have to worry about it. Build it and they will come.
Reporting from the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
The USDA grant is only in its second year, but scientists have already gathered lots of valuable information, and it's available to producers. To learn more, visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org or the project's website at www.beefefficiency.org.
Get your boots on the bay for the 2013 Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show. Join me, J.D. Alexander, for Boots on the Bay as we attend important industry meetings and kick back for some fun with our fellow cattlemen and women at the Cattleman's Beach Party featuring the Beach Boys. You won't want to miss the Hot Havana Nights after party with the Bellamy Brothers. For more information, visit beefusa.org. So pack up your boots. I'll see you in Tampa Bay.
I'm looking forward to having Vista once back. We weren't able to find an equivalent product.
I think our practice will be very quick to adopt Vista when it comes back.
All of my veterinary colleagues have all talked about the product coming back.
We're glad to have Vista back in the product line.
Cattlemen that we work with will be glad to have the product.
We have a lot of producers that are excited about it coming back.
Yeah, can I recommend Vista once? Yeah, that's going to go right back in the cooler, and it goes right back in the calves.
You're not responsible for the weather, just the cattle. And Rangeland works as hard as you do to deliver performance, production, and profitability. Cattle need consistent nutrition. They'll get it year-round with Rangeland products from Land O'Lakes. Deliver what they need free choice in weather-resistant loose minerals and mineral and protein tubs. Get the most out of your forage. See your Land O'Lakes Co-op for products that will stand up to whatever Mother Nature throws at us. Weather's coming in. Rangeland. Consider it done.
Low financing, big implement bonuses. Now's the best time to save on the John Deere compactor utility tractor you've been waiting for during the Green Fever sales event. Get big cash off at your John Deere dealer with the purchase of qualifying implements. Plus, you can enter online right now to win a new John Deere 3E or 5E series tractor at johndeere.com/greenfever. So get to your John Deere dealer today for the biggest deals of the year.
Welcome back. Feed efficiency is a hot topic in today's cattle market, especially with the record high feed prices. Last week, we learned about a federally funded grant through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, or NIFA, that is working on new technology to improve feed efficiency in the cattle industry. This week, Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Matt Fleck takes us back to the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska, and shows us how genomics can be used to improve feed efficiency.
Raising cattle that are feed efficient is a constant challenge for producers across all segments of the beef industry. Management practices, feed rations, and overall health programs all play a part in determining if the animals are going to be efficient. Now, scientists are looking at genomics as a way to help producers make better selection decisions.
We're actually using the USDA NIFA funding to produce animals that we can gather individual animal intake data on, as well as growth and body composition data when those animals are processed and sent to market. So we can actually use those data and those phenotypes to actually do genomic studies, which is to try to study and identify the regions of the genome that control the genetic variability in these traits, and be able to come up with prediction equations that we can use to come up with molecular estimates of breeding value, or molecular EPDs, that producers can use to select animals for increased feed efficiency.
The National Program for the Genetic Improvement of Feed Efficiency in Beef Cattle includes 21 scientists from 11 different institutions, as well as several producers and breed associations who are in the process of gathering data from over 8,000 animals.
But our hope through this project is to be able to develop genomic predictors, really indicator traits of an animal's genetic propensity for feed intake and or feed efficiency. And as we think about genomic selection tools, they really lend themselves to the types of traits that are expensive or difficult to measure, and feed intake certainly fits that.
Animals have significant amounts of genetic variation due to the particular combinations of genes that they have that actually impact the amount of feed that they need to grow and get them to market weight.
Once the genomic information is gathered, it's incorporated into expected progeny differences, or EPD, calculations. This improves the accuracy of EPDs for economically relevant traits, such as feed efficiency, and also allows for earlier selection decisions.
we hope to come out with more accurate EPDs or EPDs for traits which before we didn't have EPDs for, something like feed intake or feed efficiency. And that's enabled, of course, by genomics. And of course, feed intake or feed efficiency is one of those key economic drivers from the cost side of the equation. So the exciting thing about having a genetic selection tool for feed intake is the ability to actually select on profit. So selecting on optimum values of output, like growth, and input, like feed intake, and being able to put those in some kind of economic index and actually select for the animals that are most profitable given somebody's breeding objective.
The project's cutting-edge genomic work has seed stock producers Scott and Kim Ford very excited about the future of the industry. They believe it's something that will be a huge benefit to their own operation.
We do what we can at this point using anecdotal data in our own herd. But if we could genomically be able to see something through a DNA panel that's going to help us out, we definitely want to hone in on that.
Genomics is a big part of what we do, and Kim and I have talked about this a lot, that if there's tools out there that we can take advantage of to eliminate problems down the road or become more efficient, we need to be embracing those tools and take advantage of those every chance that we get. Obviously, we understand that we have a finite amount of resources out here, and anything that we can do to become more efficient, whether it's residual feed intake study or fertility study or anything that we can do using genomics is going to make us more efficient, not only in our operation but as an industry.
Dave Nichols, a seed stock producer from Bridgewater, Iowa, also sees the importance of keeping up with new breakthroughs in cattle genetics.
We've used some techniques like crossbreeding, the use of implants and some things like this, which has improved feed efficiency. But the thing about increasing feed efficiency genetically is it is a win-win situation because everyone wins. We use less grain and less feed inputs, so that makes it available for other animals, and these animals don't spend as long in the feedlot, so there's less time involved. So I'm 72 years old, and I am so excited that I'm going to be able to participate in DNA technology, which is going to increase female fertility, increase resistance to disease, and especially increase feed efficiency, because I want to produce more beef at a lower price so more people can enjoy how good it tastes. And we've got billions of people all over the world that need to be eating American beef.
In addition to producers, many breed associations are taking notice of the new genomic work and are beginning to incorporate that technology into their own customized programs.
In this summer run at the American Hereford Association, we will produce our very first genomic enhanced EPD. We're currently in our third year in collecting feed intake phenotypes in our young sire test program. Basically what we get per year is somewhere between 300 and 400 records through that program, but then we also have individual breeders that have collected those phenotypes, and that is obviously growing. We currently have over 1,500 50K genotypes on high accuracy animals within the Hereford breed. And I think without question, when we launch this new genomic enhanced EPD, that uptake will go even exponentially faster.
As technology advances, the scientists involved with this project say it's important for producers to remember that new tools are meant to work in conjunction with what's already being done on an operation.
Genomic tools aren't a replacement for traditional EPDs. They're simply a means of making them more accurate by seamlessly integrating those two pieces of information together in our national cattle evaluation. It's only augmenting our traditional tools with genomic tools now.
While the beef industry is just in the early stages of this genomic research, many producers believe it has the potential to be a huge benefit to the industry in the very near future.
I think we've just scratched the surface on genomics and what they can offer for us as an industry. It's pretty phenomenal just to see where we've come in a short period of time, and if we keep forging ahead, I think that we've got great things to come.
I've spent my entire life in the purebred seed stock business, and I will tell you, never a point in my life has there ever been such a collaboration within the industry of everyone's coming together. They understand the importance of measuring these important economically relevant traits and the role that genomics is going to play in that in the future.
Reporting from the U.S. Meat Animal Research Center in Clay Center, Nebraska, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
The NIFA project is funded at $1 million annually for up to 5 years. To learn more about the genomic work being done to improve selection or for more information on feed efficiency, just visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org or the project website at www.beefefficiency.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, long hauls, never-ending chores. The unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
Glenn's worked his ranch since he was a boy. A lifetime invested raising cattle and crops and caring for the land and producing a product his urban neighbors can enjoy and trust. Well, why does he go that extra mile? So someday someone he loves can carry it on. IMI Global Third-Party Verification can be your partner in helping you to market wisely and responsibly in this new world where people care where their food comes from. Real people. It was one of those surreal moments in a cowboy's life. I was sitting at the cafe on a rainy morning, breakfasting with Rodney, when he asked if I'd ever tried the Breath of Fire Kundalini. I said, well, I didn't care for Italian food, but I do like jalapenos, speaking of Breath of Fire. Well, he asked me if he seemed taller. It's yoga, he said. The Fountain of Youth Kundalini Yoga Pranayama. Everybody's doing it back home. I can sing again. I can dance the Glen Ullin polka, touch my toes and see more clearly. I couldn't do this till I signed up for the Fountain of Youth Yoga. So this is an exercise program, I asked. No, it's much more. You just need to spend 15 minutes a day doing the special positions and breathing fire. Can you touch your toes with your nose? He asked me. Truth is, I said, I don't know if I'd want to. Even if I could. My dog can reach a lot of places on himself that I wouldn't want to see up closer. Let me show you the easiest position. It's the corpse pose. Rodney lay down on the floor on his back with both his head and feet perpendicular to his body. Try and hold this position for 11 minutes. Looks to me, I said, if you could hold it for eternity, you'd be cheaper to bury. You'd fit in a shorter casket. One more. Let me show you one more. It'll change your life. Rodney stood and bent over, legs straight, arms outstretched, palms flat on the floor. He looked like an upside-down V. It's the Kundalini Archer pose. 3 minutes with long, deep breathing. What's he doing? Asked the deputy sheriff. Breath of fire? Well, what's he looking for? The Fountain of Youth. I think he's been drinking. The deputy spoke into his walkie-talkie. I'm down here at the cafe. We got another cowboy bent over, peering between his hind legs. I know. Just get the detox pen ready. This is Baxter Black and Rodney from out there.
Welcome back. Bovine respiratory disease, or BRD, is the leading natural cause of death in U.S. beef and dairy cattle. Cattleman and Cattleman reporter Brian Baxter has more on an effort from researchers across the country to try and develop new approaches for fighting BRD.
Every cattle producer has dealt with bovine respiratory disease or pneumonia at some point. BRD is the most devastating disease of the U.S. cattle population.
The incidence of BRD in the United States is in weaned calves, on average, is 15 to 20%. In the smaller herds that we have in the U.S., the average herd size in the U.S. is about 50 head. BRD incidence in those cattle will be 30 to 50%. As expensive as medicine has gotten, we've laughed. I can afford to buy the calves, but I got to take a loan out to get the medicine. We talk about the cost of treating calves and how expensive the medicine is, but that's pennies to the dollar for what performance costs you.
BRD is one of those traits that is basically, in terms of genetics, it's sort of our holy grail, if you will, because of the amount of influence that it has on the industry and the cost. It's worth, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 billion a year easily, and those are prices that were developed in the late 90s, so it's probably gotten worse. And can cost anywhere just on treatment from $50 to $120 a head, just trying to control it within.
The sound of BRD is something vets across the country have heard far too often. BRD losses continue despite the development of improved vaccines, new broad-spectrum antibiotics, and increased fundamental knowledge as to the cause of the disease. One of the problems with BRD is the difficulty associated with diagnosing sick animals early in the disease process. Pen riders typically pull and treat animals based on the 4 components of DART, that is depression, appetite loss, respiratory distress, and elevated temperature. However, clinical signs can be variable due to the many causative agents involved in the disease complex and the temperament of the infected animal. Not all sick animals will display obvious signs of BRD, especially in the early stages of infection when treatment is most likely to be effective.
It's not a disease where we see it in all of the animals. We end up seeing animals that are very sick, very chronic, seem to get it over and over again, but there's a lot of subclinical infection in pens like this where you don't see the BRD. And as a result of that, we end up with economic losses due to decreased gain where the animals are sick and we don't realize it and are never treated for it.
These little critters behind us they're prey animals. And they have millions and millions of years of genetics built in their system to not look sick. Sick and treat doesn't work. You can't reliably find them. Now, can you get better at it? You bet you can. But prevention is where the key is.
To develop new approaches to preventing BRD, a multi-institutional team led by Dr. Jim Womack from Texas A&M University was formed for a 5-year project that includes research, education, and outreach. This BRD Coordinated Agricultural Project, or BRD CAP, is aimed at determining if newly developed genomic tools offer an opportunity to identify DNA markers that can be used to select for cattle that are less susceptible to BRD.
It's a grant that is funded by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture for up to 5 years, conditional on the availability of funding and on the performance of the personnel that are involved in the grant, to study and to translate the results of those studies to the industry, to understand the agents that underlie bovine respiratory disease and the genetic variability among animals for their resistance or susceptibility to the disease. We live in a time that technology is changing almost monthly. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we've been able to develop high-density genotyping assays, and there are at least 3 or 4 of them now that have been produced in the market and are commercialized by different companies that allow us to actually look at the DNA of individual animals and ask what is their genotype at between 50,000 to over 800,000 positions within their genome. These are tools that we just haven't had in the past and that enable us to be able to characterize the genetic differences between animals.
This is a really exciting time to be involved in genomics. We've gone in the last decade from doing single gene marker tests to now having the ability to do hundreds of thousands of gene marker tests on a single animal. And basically we're also sequencing animals, and so there's been tremendous developments in genomics, and the idea is to put the power of genomics to tackle the biggest disease problem in the US cattle industry.
To date, there's been no way to directly select cattle that are less susceptible to contracting BRD. However, if a DNA test was developed that could identify cattle that are more likely to remain healthy, this would open up a new approach for selecting cattle.
Disease resistance is quite a hard trait to select for because it's not very heritable. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of environmental factors that play into whether an animal gets sick, whether it gets exposed to a disease agent, for example. So that's a low heritability trait. And low heritability traits are typically pretty hard to improve. However, other animal industries like the dairy industry with mastitis have made genetic progress at still improving milk production and net merit of those animals whilst minimizing the incidence of mastitis. And so there is precedent there that it can be done so long as you've got measurements on animals that you can use to develop selection tools. And that's where we've been lacking, what we've been lacking in the beef cattle industry. We haven't been able to select for BRD resistance because we haven't had any selection tools that would allow a producer to, for example, pick a bull that might be more resistant to bovine respiratory disease.
We'll be able to build DNA diagnostics that enable producers to identify among their cattle the ones that are more likely to succumb to disease and those that are much more resistant to disease. And of course they can use those animals in selective breeding programs to create genetic improvement for resistance to disease. We'll be able to come up with DNA tests that help us come up with EPDs, molecular EPDs, for resistance or susceptibility to BRD. So these are tools that producers know how to use. They know how to use EPDs to select to improve growth and carcass composition and calving ease within cattle. And we'll also have EPDs now that will tell them the likelihood that the animal or its progeny will get symptoms and be sick from the pathogens that cause BRD, and that in itself will allow selection programs to start increasing the resistance of the national herd to disease, which will be of direct benefit to the animal.
BRD susceptibility is most likely a complex genetic trait governed by the effects of many genes. This means a large number of cattle will need to be studied in order to detect all of the possible genetic variants that are associated with susceptibility to BRD.
When you're talking about doing DNA tests with hundreds of thousands of markers, you need very large populations in order for the statistics to be able to pull out which are those genomic regions of interest. And so the BRD cap is putting together some large discovery populations in both dairy and beef cattle in order to give us the statistical power to actually pull out the regions of the genome that look like they're associated with bovine respiratory disease resistance.
There is also an extension and education component to the project. This will involve the development and delivery of educational programs on animal health management, genomic and animal breeding programs.
The BRD cap is really a combination of research, extension and education, and all three of those components are vital to the project and very integrated in the project. We have students working in the labs with the research projects that are going on. We're working in close collaboration with commercial operators to actually develop our resource populations, and part of the reason for that is we need such large populations that no university could have the types of numbers we need. And so we're very closely integrated with industry in the discovery, but then also I think most importantly the extension component is how do you actually get those tools integrated into industry, incorporated into selection decisions, incorporated into the selection tools that are going to actually be taken up by industry and utilized to make this genetic progress. Because BRD is both environmentally and genetically, there's components of both. It's equally important to concentrate on the management factors that we can implement to reduce stress, ensure animals are in good health and good nutrition, and marry that up to the good genetics to truly reduce the incidence.
If the BRD cap achieves its ultimate goal, then cattle producers throughout the industry will have science-based knowledge and management tools that will dramatically reduce the incidence of BRD.
We have made genetic progress in traits that are lowly heritable, and the value of that genetic progress can be very great for traits like disease resistance, because the cost of this disease to the national herd is over $1 billion annually. So even very small changes that may that may occur due to selection can have very large economic consequences, which is what makes this research so important.
I think that people that incorporate that into their selection decisions are going to be preferred suppliers, if you will, to the feedlot industry. Of course, there will be savings in reducing the $1 billion cost associated with bovine respiratory disease as it currently exists. And on a more global scale, there will be better animal welfare and less use of antimicrobials in the industry. And both of those, I think, contribute to the overall sustainability of the beef cattle industry.
I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Cattle producers who want to learn more about the BRD cap can go to the project's website at brdcomplex.org. We'll be right back.
There's something wrong. His head is down. He's clearly stressed. He's worried sick about BRD. That's why there's prescription Zactran for BRD treatment and control in high-risk cattle. Get a rapid response plus 10-day treatment and control in a single dose, so you can stop worrying and get back to business. For use in cattle only, do not treat cattle within 35 days of slaughter. Because a discard time in milk has not been established, do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, or in calves to be processed for veal. The effects of Zactran on bovine reproductive performance, pregnancy, and lactation have not been determined. Don't worry yourself sick. Talk to your veterinarian about a real alternative for BRD treatment and control. Because it's critical, it's Zactran from Marielle, a leading animal health company.
There's only one place to find cattle industry updates, market highlights, and stories by cattlemen for cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Learn about every segment of the industry, from cow-calf producers to feeders, from beef safety to food service and retail. Join host Kevin Oxner for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern on RFD TV.
Welcome back. According to the USDA's Census of Agriculture, the average age of an American farmer today is 57 years old, and that number continues to rise with each passing year. That's why it's more important than ever before for the younger generation of cattle producers to stand up and get involved. Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Sharon Alseth met up with two young producers in South Carolina who are working hard to carve out a future in the beef industry.
I love cattle. It's something that's been in me since I was a little kid. And if it's in you, you can't get it out of you.
Brandon Hurley lives and breathes the cattle industry. At age 34, he's the owner of Bar H Cattle Company in Gray Court, South Carolina. He started the operation from the ground up 10 years ago with just 3 cows.
Paid my way through school and got out and came here and started and just put my head down and wouldn't take no for an answer. Began backgrounding steer calves and putting weight on them and selling them in load lots, and then I got into the cow-calf business. So built it up and to where we are today.
Today, Bar H Cattle is a successful cow-calf operation, and Brandon also stocks nearly 500 calves each year. But the ranch isn't the only thing growing. Last October, Brandon found love in the land of cattle and married his wife, Eva.
Eva's my partner, and that's how I would describe her in every way. She, not only in our family and our personal lives, but here on this operation, she's definitely my right arm here. There's no doubt about that.
He definitely is my partner, and there's things that he's better at than things that I'm better at as far as managing the business, and I think we complement each other in our partnership together.
Eva also grew up on a farm. She graduated from West Virginia University with a major in agribusiness management and rural development, and came to South Carolina to start her career. Not only does she have a job in town, but she also works daily with Brandon on the ranch.
It does take a lot of hard work to try to keep both in check, because you get up in the morning, you got to give 110% at your real job, but you come home into your other real job. So I come home in the evenings, and I've got my chores I do on a daily basis, and then we always check the cow herd together. Like Brandon said, it's once you grow up on a farm, it's kind of in your blood, and nice to be able to come here after work and relax and breathe fresh air and get dirty.
Even with his busy schedule, Brandon is always looking for ways to be involved in the industry off the ranch. Most recently, he was the president of the South Carolina Cattlemen's Association.
I was president for 2 years, from 2010 to 2012. I enjoyed my time, met a lot of great people, worked with a lot of good people. We've got a great set of legislators and folks in Columbia at our capital who have done an excellent job, and Cattlemen's and the Beef Council and the Farm Bureau are really on the same page as far as cattle producers and farmers are concerned.
Different organizations coming together for the benefit of the cattle industry is extremely important, and Brandon says no one knows that better than the National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
I'm very proud to be associated with NCBA. NCBA has a strong voice, and it's made up from the sum of the people that are a part of it. And so I can't go to Washington every day and fight and argue my case, which allows me to be able to farm and ranch for a living. But NCBA can, and they are a very, very strong organization and a respected organization.
The future is always on their minds. As today's cattle producers are aging, Brandon and Eva know that continuing to build up their business is more important than ever before, and they're finding creative ways to do it.
You have to be willing to sit down and think about how to get involved, and I went to a selected group of older farmers around here, older cattlemen around here, and I said, look, if you ever decide to get out of the business, let me know, and I will buy you cattle, lease your property, and we'll leave everything just as it is. The beauty of it is the cattle are still in their backyard, so they can still walk outside every day and see the cows that they owned for so many years still standing there. Nothing's different other than they don't have to go feed them in the wintertime or cut hay in the summer.
It's not work if you love what you're doing. I was reading a quote and I stumbled across it. It was from Vince Lombardi, and it says the difference between successful people and others is not from the lack of knowledge, but it's rather from their lack of will. So if you have the will to do it, you can do anything you want to.
There is a huge opportunity here for young people to get involved in the cattle business. Just always be willing to think outside the box. Don't ever get too comfortable where you are. There's always ways of increasing and doing more and doing better. You just have to think of how you want to do it and where you want to go.
Brandon and Eva say keeping your eye on the goal, along with hard work and determination, are the keys to being successful in the cattle business. And it doesn't matter how old or young you are.
You can't ever get to where you want to be if you don't know where you want to go. If you want to do this, the only thing stopping you is the limitations you put on yourself. Because if you want to do it, it's possible.
Reporting from Bar H Cattle in Gray Court, South Carolina, I'm Sharon Alseth for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Brandon and Eva work hard every day to ensure the beef industry is around for future generations of cattle producers to enjoy. Won't you join their efforts by becoming a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association? If you join right now, you'll receive a free 100 milliliter bottle of Dectomax injectable from Pfizer Animal Health. And if you join NCBA as well as your state association, you'll receive a 200 milliliter bottle of Dectomax injectable. But you must join both at the same time to get in on this limited time offer. Joining is easy. Just give us a call at 1-866-USA-BEEF or email us at c2c@beef.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. short nights, the long hauls, never-ending chores, the unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
So what do you care if your cattle are source and age verified? Better yet, do you think the housewife cares? Well, 70% of consumers surveyed want to know where their food comes from. So where do you start? With this little green ear tag. IMI Global's the seal of approval that stands behind the beef you produced. IMI is engaged in source and age verification from the cowman to the kitchen table. So if you're ready to start, just ask us. IMIGlobal.com.
Black and white, oil and water, bean sprout and beefsteak, father and son. One of the most complicated relationships since Adam and Abel, or Pancho Villa and his prodigal son, the Cisco Kid. Many rural families hope that their children will be interested in taking over the family farm or ranch. But for that to happen, there's got to be a lot of give and take. I can't believe he's so ungrateful. I raised him from a pup. He worked beside me night and day. We never did let up. He learned to drive a tractor, grease a windmill, pick up rock, to stack loose hay and irrigate. Never watch the clock. Each summer he spent on the place beneath my watchful eye. And then I sent him off to college thinking they would sanctify all this learning I had given him. But when he got out, guess what? He must have slept through classes because he just flat came untaught. He's got all these new ideas about how to run the place. I've listened to his theories till I'm near a basket case. He's subscribed to every magazine, leaves them by my bed with pages marked for me to read about how the cows are bred or how to increase profits, change rotations, and upgrade. Shoot, he beats me up each morning and has the coffee made. He quotes his old professors who I'm sure ain't touched a plow. He forgets that 20 years ago I picked the kind of cow we should be raising. But he's so dang enthusiastic, and my imagination's lost what's left of its elastic. I like to think eventually we'll work this whole thing out and run this place together. Shoot, that's what farming's all about. And we might, if I can just survive these lengthy conversations and he don't lose his energy before I lose my patience. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Draxxin, clearly cattlemen's #1 choice to fight BRD. Here's why.
Nothing is more depressing in a stalker business as the doctor and you still have your chronics, you still have your death loss. Man, with Draxxin, we just found out that, especially with microplays, you just had to be there to see the results.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts chronics and mortalities by 70%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see, nothing gives you more for your money when you're fighting BRD.
Just a great antibiotic.
Very, very effective. Don't let the price tag scare you. It's a no-brainer. You just use it.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Welcome back. Let's have a look at this week's legacy photos from the Region 1 winner of the Environmental Stewardship Award. To submit your favorite farm or ranch photo, just visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. We'd love to see them. Well, that does it for this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We'll see you right back here next week on RFD TV.